The Monopole Tool Bike might be the cutest dang small cargo bike out there on the market today, but is it any good? What do you need to know? The first thing you need to know is that this bike is made in France, just north of us here in Catalonia, but it is designed in Zurich, Switzerland. One of the big priorities of Monopole is to use as many parts from within the EU. The tool bike falls within one of my favorite classes of bikes at the moment, which is kind of the small micro cargo bike, basically a cargo bike that fits into more of an urban setting. That is to say, something that will fit in a small apartment, a small European elevator, or even on the back of a normal sized bike rack. All of these are a bit of a challenge for traditional Bachfeets or Longtails, or those excel in sheer cargo carrying capacity. Unless you live in a house with a garage or have a super secure outdoor place to park them, they can be a little bit more limiting. This bike is sold as a complete in various options, or you can get it as a frame set. When you get it as a frame set, you can select the bottom bracket. It's this modular system. It allows you to use a standard BSA threaded bottom bracket or some variation of the pinion drivetrain. If you do opt to go old school and go the BSA route, you're a little bit limited in terms of your drivetrains to, one by systems, since there is no way to mount a front derailleur. That said, the way it's designed, I definitely think they're trying to urge you gently down the pinion route. I talked with Yuri, one of their designers over at Bespoked. They showcased a 1x BSA version, but he really did suggest that if you needed a wider range than what could be attained with a standard 1x, then you're better off going with a pinion. One of the more unique design features of this bike is the belt drive steering. It uses a perfectly sized Gates carbon belt drive. What this does, it cleans up the design a bit by getting rid of a linkage arm that kind of protrudes from the side of the bike. Other things about the frame that is pretty unique is the mixed wheel size of having a 20-inch wheel and tire in the front and a 24 in the rear. I think it's really ideal for this, small cargo bike setup. It's lower to the ground, but not too low if you were to go with, two 20-inch wheels. So it has better rollover ability, especially when it's paired with these big and supple tires. Also, being smaller than a 26er or 29er, this allows for a much shorter wheelbase, so it can fit in elevators and bike racks. I'm stoked that this review bike came with the Billy Bonkers. They're super plush and really cushion the ride of the bike, even though it has smaller than the normal wheels. Other things to note is that this is kind of a prototype model that they showed at Eurobike, and the final production frame has seen some changes. One of those big changes is the option to add rear rack mounts on the rear. Previously, there was a bit of a hidden mount under the wishbone, but now you can add normal eyelets on the seat stays. So if you want a rear rack, they've made it that much easier. In terms of carrying capacity, there are two rack options. This is the more flattish mount option. Then they make one that's designed to carry grocery bags specifically. They also sell options to have kind of a Euro box in the front. The stated weight capacity of the rack is 30 kilograms. So like I mentioned, this particular build was for Eurobike. So it's a lot different than their standard builds, namely the drop bar shifting and the pinion smart shift. When you buy the standard builds, they are built up a bit more practically with flat bars, kickstand, and fenders. So don't judge the entire line of bikes from this particular review bike is what I'm saying. As you see this bike here, I put it on our scales. It weighed in at about 18.85 kilograms, or just around 40 pounds. I believe this is about par with the Omnium Minimax that I reviewed. Okay, enough of the boring stuff. How's it ride? What are the likes and dislikes of the Monopole tool bike? First off, I've been riding this bike on and off for the last couple months, taking it on some local gravel rides, on some road rides even, picking up packages within town, as well as riding it up one of the local climbs here with my portable painting kit, just to see how the handling alters with a load. My biggest interest in this class of small cargo bike is I'm currently looking for the perfect bike painting bike. And I know, very selfish of me to try to review bikes that fit that niche. While I can and do carry a lot of things in just one big side pannier, it does make a bike ride a little like trash, and it's not my favorite. But on the Monopole, having that weight kind of front and centered, it just rode like a dream. So first, the positives. The monopole might be the most nimble and neutral handling cargo bike I've tried so far. Unlike a longtail, it doesn't feel laggy and waggy when you're climbing. Unlike a front loader, let's say the Minimax, it took way less time to adjust to it. First took receipt of the bike. It probably took all of 10 seconds to get used to it. It just rode like a normal bike. So whereas some cargo bikes take a solid adjustment period, the monopole did not. A good example of this is, let's say, standing and climbing. This is usually an area where it definitely takes some adjustment to do it with a front-loading cargo bike. But I found that it rode about the same as a regular bike. So whatever geometry they worked out with the tire size and the trail, it feels really, really good. I can't stress this enough. In terms of going downhill, both loaded and unloaded, the bike felt super stable. I attribute a lot of this to the smaller wheels. You just feel like a little bit lower on the ground. I'd go as far as to say that it's actually one of my favorite descending bikes ever, even compared to normal bike. All that to say is that the Geo nails it with the handling. Someone had asked in a previous video that if it was your only bike, would it still be fun to ride unloaded? And unequivocally, my answer is yes. That said, I definitely think it depends on what kind of riding you're doing unloaded. Don't expect it to be able to keep up with a fast group ride necessarily. But if you like to ride, to explore, to wander, to ride party pace, then 100% or 100%. Other big positives is that this bike works awesome for small apartments and small elevators. The monopole, in comparison, fits no problem. If you can fit a normal bike in there, you can fit the monopole. In terms of carrying a load, I never really exceeded the weight limit. Most of the things I carried weren't more than 30 pounds at any given time. So I had a fair amount of headroom to spare. Part of it is the smaller size of the rack kind of limits how big of a load you can carry. With the loads I did carry, the handling felt good. It still felt neutral. There's no noticeable lag in steering with the belt drive steering. I think generally speaking, because of the smaller rack, it's going to naturally limit what you're going to carry. So you're likely not to overload it too much, where it's going to have massive negative effects to the handling, if that makes sense. Like I feel like with the Omnia Minimax or the Cargo, it's easy to just put all of the things on there and things get a little loosey-goosey. But since the rack on the monopole is on the smaller side, I think it will naturally limit your load so the bike still handles pretty good. Another big positive is that this bike is an absolute head turner. Its design and proportions just look really, really good. Okay, so that's all the positives. What are the negatives? One of the things I really wanted to do with this bike, and not to say that you can't do it, is take it on a mixed terrain bikepacking trip out to the coast. It's one of the main reasons why I wanted to review this bike. I really wanted to see how it would handle as a loaded adventure bike. And again, I want to stress that this has nothing to do with the frame or the bike design or more the particular drivetrain in this instance. I took the bike out on a longer gravel ride just to shake it down, see how it felt on the loose stuff. But in the middle of this gravel ride, the Pinion Smart Shift stopped shifting into lower gears and would only shift into harder ones. Oh my God.
I think it wouldn't be the dust. That would be the whole point, right?
It seems to be going into harder gears, but not lower gears, and I don't want to shift it into any harder gear than this.
Yeah.
So I immediately stopped shifting because we were at the furthest point away from home and still had to pedal back. Strangely, after about 30 minutes, the problem seemed to fix itself, but this was enough to shake my confidence in the drivetrain, where I didn't want to deal with that on like a dirt track somewhere on the Catalonian coast. That was my first issue, and again, that's less with the bike and more specific to the drivetrain. But kind of related to that, the drivetrain options, by nature of design are a little bit limited, and like I said, they're kind of pushing you towards going with the Pinion. You can set it up with a 1x drivetrain. Their only bio option is a setup with the Shimano Alfine 11. Which has a range of 400%, which is fine, but I think for steep roads and big loads, you'd want a wider range. or at least I would want a wider range. So anything wider than that, you do have to go the pinion route, which gets spendy. The second thing to be aware of is the cargo capacity. I mean, as expected, it's a bit limited with the smaller front rack. It is part and parcel of the small micro cargo bike. So as long as you pick up and drop off loads that conform to the dimensions of the front rack or a Eurobox, then you're fine. But for example, I could never use a bike like this to pick up a box bike. That's where something like the Omnia Minimax shines. So depending on the loads you carry regularly, this might not be the best cargo bike for you. But if you can work within its limits, one way to think about it is like it's a really, really awesome big basket bike. But if you're the sort where you need a cargo bike to carry, you know, whatever may come your way, and the dimensions are constantly changing, sometimes they're bigger, sometimes they're smaller, something like an Omniums would be a better choice. Probably the biggest con for some people here is going to be the price. The cheapest frame set you can get with a front rack, so it's usable as a cargo bike, it's going to set you back just under $3,000, and that's with the BSA kind of insert. In terms of completes, the least expensive bio build with Alfine 11-speed is going to be about $4,800, and their electric bike option that uses a pinion drive and the Mahle rear drive motor is going to be $7,800. So as you can see, it can get eye-wateringly expensive fairly quickly. If I were to build one out personally, I would probably go with one with a wider range yet fully mechanical pinion. Overall, with my time with this bike, I've been supremely impressed with its handling characteristics. I didn't think a cargo bike could feel this nimble, this neutral, and this fun. It's perfect for small spaces. And if you can work within its carrying dimensions, you know, if the kind of Eurobox size, then you're good to go. But again, that price, I wish it cost less. I mean, I can see why it's expensive. They're trying to keep everything within the EU, and that's the same case for like having bikes built all within the US. It gets expensive, which is a bit of a shame because I think this design would be perfect for so many people. If you could throw a leg over it, you'd definitely see why. Like, I totally dig it. That's what I think. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe and please consider supporting the channel. That's how we keep the lights on. I don't get to keep this bike. They're going to pick it up. So with all that said, keep the supple side down.